Hey folks, Paul Abernathy here. Welcome to another episode here of Coffee Hour with Paul. And we're going to do a little bit of exam prep today. We're going to kind of look at some questions, kind of talk about how you dissect a question, give you some tips on how I might read a question, especially if I'm in the stress of an exam. We don't have access to the index electronically to share on the screen, but of course you all should have your code book, and here's the index. And the index is not the holy grail, but it can bail you out when you're having some trouble. So you want to make sure you get very fluent, okay, in using the index. And of course, we'll talk about that. Now, a couple things I want to mention before we get into a couple questions today on this really quick lesson for you. We want to make sure that you understand that when you get access to a set of questions, whether it's 25 questions, whether it's 100 questions, 50 questions, it doesn't really matter. You need to take those questions and really beat them to death. In other words, you look at a question, you need to dissect every piece of that question. You need to use the index, you need to go back and forth, you need to look at keywords and say, well, maybe I could have found the answer under that keyword, or maybe I could have found it under that keyword. And then you're going to go to the index and you're going to come back and you're going to go back and come back. Now, the misconception that people have, and I've had over 32 years of teaching how to maneuver and understand the NEC. And I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. In order to learn, you have to train the brain. And you'll learn what's in the index and what is not in the index, but you'll learn how it's second nature to go to the index. It's, again, not the holy grail, but it can help you out of a real bind if you understand how it works. Every question on an exam should have some point of it that will get you somewhere. And it's not going to be exact, but something in it should lend you to knowing where you might go into the index, or you just have to use what we call trade knowledge. Now, of course, there's scanning techniques we call bold scanning, and we'll kind of show you that. And there's deductive reasoning, is removing the obvious and then increasing your odds. And of course, there's another video I have out called the 3-wave method that kind of shows you the right way that you need to tackle an electrical exam. But if anybody ever tells you that if you get a set of questions, if they tell you that you have to try to time yourself when you first sit down with these questions, if they tell you you have to time yourself so that you do them in under 2 minutes, don't listen to that educator. They're setting you up for failure. Now, if you've been studying, if you're in a structured program like our Fast Tracks program, which gives you extensive training on the NEC, then that's fine. You can use exam questions to test your skill right there in the last 2 weeks or so before your exam to really start honing those last minute skills and give you that confidence. But up until that point, you do not want to take a question for advantage. You don't want to take it and just not use it for its full value, I guess what I should say. And so we're going to show you how you would do that. And you need to do that with every question. And it might get frustrating at first. You might say, well, I feel like I'm spending too much time on a question. That's okay. Because you're learning how to look at a question and start focusing on a question. And the number one thing that people have trouble with is reading comprehension. So if you can fix that reading comprehension, the ability to look at a question, to read it, understand that there are triggers in there, and even the answers may be relevant triggers. We'll see that probably on a couple questions today. And it's okay if it takes you a long time. That's all right. You're still learning. So let's jump on into a couple questions. I gave you a bit of a pep talk there, but let's go on and jump into some and see what we've got. Okay, first question we're going to look at here today. It says, a metal underground water pipe may serve as a grounding electrode where it is in direct contact with the earth at least blank feet or more. Okay, now remember, you may know the answer right off the top of your head. And if you were doing my 3-wave method, then you're going to answer that question and you're going to move on. Okay? That's fine, because in that first wave, you're going to answer what you know. You're going to mark electronically ones that you take a minute or so that you can't find. Just mark it electronically and go on to the next one. Do not get bogged down on a question. You will have time, if you follow that process, you will have time to spend a little more time with that question. And you might find that you find the answer while you're looking up other questions throughout your exam. So that's what we want to focus on. So let's look at this real quick. So a couple things that stick out to me here is we're talking about a metal underground water pipe electrode. Okay, that's a grounding electrode. And it tells us right here, grounding electrode. And it's asking about what does it take for a metal underground water pipe to be a grounding electrode. Okay, so one of the things you can do if you had no idea, well, I'm sure you all know, okay, that this is going to be in Article 250, but that's not good enough for us. We need to dig down deeper and say, okay, metal underground water pipe, grounding electrodes, okay, those are key triggers that we want to use for the index. So you want to pause this video, that's fine. You can go to the index. I'm going to let it roll, and I'm going to go to the index as well. I have an index right here. I do not have an electronic one because NFPA does not make the index available. That's because it has a search feature, but that doesn't do much for us educators who like to use the electronic version. Okay, so we need to use the index. So the first thing I'm going to say, here's how we dissect. You ready? Now this is a simple one to dissect, but I want to use it because it kind of illustrates what we're talking about. So the first thing that we'll dissect is metal underground water pipe. That is exactly a type of electrode. So we're going to go back to the index and we're going to see if there's anything under metal underground water pipe. So I'm going to go back in here and see if there is anything in here that might have to do with a metal underground water pipe. Now, it may or may not be in here, but that's the whole point of why we're doing it. All right, so we're going to look here and say, is there anything that looks like metal underground water pipe? Okay, I don't see anything that says that. And you're saying, Paul, I knew that wouldn't be back there. Well, that's okay. Now you always will know that if you get a question about metal underground water pipe, later you're going to know exactly what section to go to in the NEC because you'll just get better. I promise you'll get better. And if you're a fast track student, I know you've gotten better. So in this case, the metal underground water pipe didn't help us in the index. So the next we would look at and say, okay, well, what about grounding electrodes? Okay, so I'm going to go into the index, and you need to do it too. I encourage people when they're studying with me in these episodes that you have your code book in front of you, and you can pause the video, or you can just do it along with me and see if you beat me to it. All right, so I'm going to go into grounding, see if there's anything under G for grounding electrodes in the index. And so I'm down here in it, and I'm going to look and see if there's anything under grounding electrodes. And you do it too. So let's see here. I have grounding conductors. I have a grounding electrode conductors. I have grounding electrodes, which says to see electrodes. Okay, so we've learned that our electrodes, and some may be specific, have references in here, but we're learning that we needed to, when we're thinking about grounding electrodes, we need to go to where? We need to go to electrodes. So we're going to go to electrodes. That's in E. Now let's go on and go there. Now, granted, if you already have some knowledge of the articles and the sections, I serve on Code Panel 5. I know exactly where to go. That doesn't help you if you're new to this and you need to learn the skills of dissecting a question. Remember, when you're starting out, it's not about the time. It's about being able to learn the index, learn what may or may not be in there. We've already learned some key things here. The metal underground water pipe isn't in the back, and then grounding electrodes is not in there. It sends you to electrodes. So we're going to go look under electrodes, see what we see. And I see electrodes. And under electrodes, I notice that it's going to set different ones. And I see metal water piping. All right. And I'm looking under it. Now, this is interesting. Okay. So if you're used to this and you're following along with me, you look in there and you see there's a .30 under metal water piping. And then you see there's also .52. So you'll get better, trust me. You'll learn that the .30s is talking about separately derived systems and things like that. And the .52s or the .52 is under grounding electrodes, right? It just takes you time, but you will. Because what you're going to do is you're going to dissect this. Here it says metal water pipe. So you would have gone to 250.30 and looked at it, and you would have said, well, okay, I get it. That's separately derived system. Then you would have gone to 250.52, and you would have gone, hey, that's grounding electrode types, different ones, different list of ones. And A1 happens to be the water pipe type grounding electrode. So that's how you would do it. Now, we don't stop there. Those are just two, and that's how it would have got us there. We look to see if there's anything else that would have helped us in here. Maybe what else might be in the back. So I see it's about the best we can do with that. I got electrodes. I don't see anything else in there that would help us. So I think those are probably the best two we're gonna go to. Okay. So in our case, we would go to the code, and I wanted to show you if you had gone to those two, where you would be. So the .30, let's go to there, just to show you. And once you will forever understand. So we'll go to 250.30. And so if my question in 250.30 had been about separately derived systems, then I now know the difference, right? So 250.30 here, it says separately derived systems, alternating current. So if I'm dealing with separately derived system, transformers, things like that, then I know now when I'm talking about a water pipe ground and I see the .30 in 250, I know that that's separately derived systems. And it could be for transformers and things like that. The key here is now you know, and it makes it easier, and you'll forever remember, okay, I get a question, I'm stressed out. If it's separately derived system, it's talking about a separately derived system, and it's asking me about the grounding system, okay? Then I know for those, I know that it's .30. Now let's go on to the .52A1, and you'll see the difference. Sorry for my scrolling. If for some reason link is not working with the little drops underneath it, I don't know what's going on with it today, but that's okay. We'll get there. All right, so here is 52. And this is the grounding electrodes. Okay? And here's A1. And that's what it was in your index. A1, 250.52A1. And here's your water pipe. Now, when we say additional triggers, once you get there, bold scanning would be if we had gotten here and we're looking for metal underground water pipe, we would have scanned it, and we would have seen metal underground water pipe. And then the next, we would use the answers, and we know it's got to be an 8, a 6, a 12, or 10. And really quickly looking through here, we see 10. Okay, so that would tell us trigger 10. So we go back to the question, and we answer 10. And there we go. All right, remember, this technique is, if you want to do time and somebody tells you to do time, that's great. Do that in the last 2-3 weeks before you're ready to take your exam. Until then, relax. Dissect the question. Look up all the possible ways. Beat that question to death. That's the best way to learn. I've been giving this advice for over 30 years. I've helped thousands and thousands of people pass their exams and learn the NEC. This is how you do it. You dissect it. We've learned some critical things about the index while we did that little exercise. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Okay, so this one, it says, when calculating the demand load for a one-family dwelling, what total minimum volt amperes must be included in the calculation for the required small appliance and laundry circuit loads? Okay, so again, typical question that comes on exams, wanting to make sure that you understand. And by the way, this wouldn't matter if it was a single family dwelling, 2 individual dwellings of a 2-family dwelling, or if it was the individual dwelling units of a multi-family dwelling. Okay, same concept. And it also doesn't matter whether it's an optional or the standard, the same VA values are going to be utilized for both. So this is something you just ingrain in your head, but we're talking about a calculation, right? So where in the code talks about calculations? You got it. Article 220. That's our calculations article. Gives you everything for branch, feeders, and services that you would need for standard method, optional method, everything in there. Things to commit to memory. Calcs. Now, if your question is about the branch circuits itself for these small appliance and laundry, then that would be 210, right? Because that's branch circuits. It didn't mention anything in here about the branch circuits. So the most important takeaway from me here, right, is that it wanted to calculate the demand load. Okay, there's a load involved in this. So it wants you to know that. So when I see that load and it was no mention about a branch circuit or anything like that, then I know that we're going to be looking at 220. Right? Now, you can go to the index and shuffle around for it. Small appliance, maybe that's the dissect it and use a small appliance branch circuit and look in the back. Maybe you look for laundry circuit in the back. But me, I know that this is in 220. And I also know that it's kind of fairly close to the front of 220, right? So we're going to kind of go look at that. So let's go on and go into 220. So I've got my code book here, and I'll go into it. There's 220, right? So interesting thing about this pictograph here, this infogram here that you see, you'll notice that the general is general provisions. It's in part 1, branch circuit load. So branch circuit load calculations, right here, right here. And our question is asking about calculate the demand load for a one-family dwelling. So we're not asking about the branch circuit. We're asking about the one-family dwelling, right? So key things to remember here is that unless they state optional, you're going to always use the standard. Of course, in this case, the VA values are not going to matter, but you should always remember that they're going to, they have to give you the information, but it's always considered the standard unless they state otherwise to use an optional method. So standard being the general way to do it in part 3, and then the optional is in part 4. Okay, so let's go on. So at this point, we can go on because we're looking specifically for what? We're looking for small appliance and we're looking for laundry. So we can go to part 3 of this. So I'll go on in and jump us down here and get us to part 3 because we're doing a load calc. If I can, let's see here. Get me back to the beginning of it. Bear with me. Okay, so first of all, let's stop at 2. So here's our branch right there. Okay, and you'll get all the individual things that you need, right, for doing the load calculation and everything right here, right? And office, hotel, dwelling units, you'll get everything here, right? And then you get to part 3. Right, so part 3, you'll see all your general requirements, and you'll kind of bold scan. You'll get down and boom, you'll see small appliance and laundry loads for dwelling unit. Okay, that's bold scanning. We went there to the beginning, and we knew it was in part 3 because it's a standard method. It's asking for the demand for one family dwelling, but it only wants the values for the small appliance and laundry. Now, some people ask me, well, what about the 3 VA per square foot? That's not what it asked, and it didn't give me the square footage, so there's no way I could ever calculate that. So don't let that creep into your head. That's irrelevant to the way the question. Always answer just the question. That's it. Don't try to put reasoning into it in logic. Just answer the question. So in this case, here we see what it says. It says each dwelling unit, okay, for the small appliance, says each dwelling unit, the load shall be calculated at 1500 VA for each 2-wire small appliance branch circuit covered in 210.11c1. Of course, if you know 210.11c1, that's the one that requires a minimum of 2, right? That's in branch circuit, tells you the number. You got a minimum of 2. Could you have more than 2? Absolutely, but have to have a minimum of 2. And it tells me that they are what? 1500 VA each, right? So we have to have a minimum of 2. So that's 1,500, that's 3,000 right there just for the two 1,500 small appliance branch circuits, okay? And then you go down here, remember it said for laundry. Here's the laundry. The laundry says a load of not less than 1,500 VA shall be included for each 2-wire laundry branch circuit, And remember, if you install more than 2, that's $1,500 each. Same with the small appliance. 2 minimum. If you put 3 in, it's $1,500 times 3. Remember that now. So in this case, it's just the bare minimum. So we had 1,500. Since they're all 1,500, we can just do 1,500 times 3. And that's 4,500. Okay, so let's come back to the question. Here we're at the question. And let's go on and click that. And there you go. That's correct. And there's the math logic right there. 2 small appliances, 1,500 each. That's 3,000. And then you have the 1 laundry, 1,500. Okay, so 4,500 total, and that was our answer. All that question did, folks, was ask me, what is the demand load that I have to contribute for the small appliance and the laundry loads? Well, we don't have enough information to do anything other than pull the VA value specifically directly from the NEC, and that's it. There's nothing we can apply. We can't apply any real demands. We can't do any of that because we don't have all the variables. All we're doing is answering the question, and that's all you need to do for that. Okay, so that answer there is 4,500. Okay? You're doing great. All right, the next question is, underwater luminaires installed in swimming pools are required to have GFCI protection if they operate at a voltage greater than blank. Okay, so you have greater than the low voltage contact limit, 50 volts, 120 volts, or 15 volts. So the question here is talking about GFCI, right? And it's talking about underwater luminaires, right? Those are triggers. And it's obviously swimming pools. So swimming pools are going to tell me that this is going to be in what article? That's right. It's going to be in 680. But where in 680? Well, obviously, the trigger here is for underwater luminaires that are installed in swimming pools. And then it's dealing with the GFCI protection. So we could use our index, and let's say we can look up what? Remember, we're dissecting. It's not about speed. You might already know the answer to this one, but you need to get used to the index. You need to get familiar with it. So let's say I'm going to use, the first thing I'm going to do is underwater luminaires. So I'm going to go to my index, and I'm going to go and see if there's anything under underwater luminaires. And this is what we mean by dissecting out the question. Okay? If you don't think this works, then you obviously have never taught code or understand the learning train that people have to go through in order to lock something long-term into memory. That's why going to these weekend crash courses just don't work. They work for a brief moment, then you forget everything. You're not banging it into the head. You're not locking it in there so it becomes repetitious. Okay? The ballistic approach to learning the National Electrical Code takes a little time up front, but it pays dividends in the end. So let's see here. So we're looking for underwater luminaires. So I'm going to go down here and look and see if I see anything for underwater luminaires. You may or may not see something. I see underground. I see underground wiring. Okay, so I don't see anything that says underwater luminaires. Okay, now we're not done because we could look up luminaires while we're here. Instead of going to the obvious swimming pool, but we're just kind of looking. So you're not going to find anything about underwater luminaires. So if you're on an exam and they start asking you questions about underwater luminaires, wet niches, things like that, going to underwater luminaires is not going to help you. So you've learned that. Trust me, it does help reduce the stress in an exam. You kind of know what's there and how to word the questions. So next, let's go look at luminaire just to look and see what we have. So I'm over here and I'm looking at luminaires, and I'm going to go down and see if I see anything that says underwater. So I'm going to look down and I see swimming pools. Okay, that's important. And then I see wet niche, which is the housing frame that's actually underwater for an underwater luminaire. So I see kind of a pattern of where I need to be inside of 680. In fact, swimming pools, spas, and similar installations, you see there's quite a few in here. But they seem to range from .22 up to .26. Anything higher than that's probably going to be for things like spas, hot tubs, and all that kind of other stuff. And right here, we're talking about underwater luminaires. So we're going to kind of stick with this logic we're at. Okay, so I see it now. You also get down, you see wet niche, and you have to know what a wet niche is. You have wet niche, dry niche, and no niche types of luminaires. But you'll notice that the wet niche is also .23. So it's right around that .23 is where we would do our bold scanning type of thing. But we're not done. We're not done. So let's see where else we might look here. Let's see here. Next thing we might bold scan out is swimming pools. So let's go to swimming pools. And again, you might have already gone to 680. You might have already started, and you might have already found the answer. Okay, but we're going to be dissecting it, and you need to do it too. So let's see here. Let's go down, and I'm going to go under swimming pools. All right, here's swimming pools, fountains, and whatnot. And I'm going to go down, and here is luminaires. Right, and it says 680.24. Oh, excuse me, it's under that one. 680.22b, 680.23. Okay, so it's all right there, 22 and 23. Okay, and I'm looking and see if there's, while I'm here, you're looking to see if there's anything else that would be beneficial. And you see a luminaires, it's still .22, still .23. So, we're still in the same ballpark. Okay, all the way at the end, you see underwater luminaires. .23, .26, .33, and .43. Okay, so all you need to remember is when you're in an exam, you get scratch paper. One of the techniques that I use when I was doing exams is that I know that I'm in 680, but all I'll do is I'll write down .22, .23, just like that. You can't see it. But I'd write that down on my scratch paper so that I remember where I'm at. And so then I'm done at that point. I know that I need to be. So I'm going to go to .22 and I'm going to start bold scanning. And I'm going to look for the reference to GFCI. I'm going to look for the reference to the voltage. All that type of stuff are triggers for me. So get your code book, and I'm going to go with us. We're going to go over to the code book. And we're going to go to 680.22. So we're right here. And let's see here, go to 680.22. And scroll down. Be careful when you're going there. You want to be right now. So, okay, so here we go. 680.22. All right. All right, so the question is about GFCIs, very specific. So here I am, and I'm looking, and here it's talking about receptacles. All right. So obviously that GFCI is for receptacles. Here's the luminaires. All right. GFCI protection. Okay. All this right here. Now, again, this is distances and things like that. I'm looking for voltage. Okay. So voltage, listed low voltage are not required grounding, not exceeding the low voltage contact limit. Okay. All that type of information. So I'm kind of just looking down. Now, 23. That is underwater luminaires. Very specific to what we were looking for. All right. So now my trigger is the voltage. GFCI protection. Ground fault interrupter protection for personnel shall be installed in the branch circuits applying luminaires operating at voltages greater than the low voltage contact limit. Okay. Now, it also says no luminaires shall be installed for operating on supply circuits over 150 volts between conductors. So which one did our question ask us about? Well, personally, there's no 150 in there, so that doesn't matter. But we know that it says greater than the low voltage contact limit. So that was our answer. And we found that as we dissected the question out. So we'll just click here and get our answer. And there it is right there, 680.23A3. The other neat thing about our Fast Tracks program, and we buy these questions, we don't write these, we buy this package to make them available to you. There's over 800 of them. Plus there's another 500 or so that are in our competency reviews. So those are only available to people that are in our course, that type of thing. So here, that's the answer. And the neat thing here is 2017 and 2020, excuse me, both of those have the same code reference. So there was no change for that one. All right. think you're doing great. Where you're learning how to dissect it, breaking it down piece by piece, using the index, and you're learning what is and what is not in the index, and you're getting your money's worth for each question. Okay? All right, next question. And the last one for this episode, here it says, any one cord and plug connected portable appliance connected to a 120 volt, 20 amp rated branch circuit shall have a maximum rating of blank amperes. So, any one cord and plug connected portable appliance. Okay, any one. Okay, any one cord and plug connected portable appliance connected to a 120 volt, 20 ampere rated branch circuit shall have a maximum rating of blank amps. Where would we find that? Okay, so a couple things that we want to look at here. Again, this is talking about what? A branch circuit. So that's going to send me a trigger that, okay, sounds like a branch circuit, and I'm plugging this cord and plug connected appliance into this branch circuit. Okay, makes sense. And so I need to be looking in branch circuits. Now, how do I dissect this one? Other than to go to what? Article 210, because you've done your flashcards, you've gotten familiar with doing that, you've probably gotten really good at it. But we'll go to the index again and just look, because again, we're going to get our money's worth out of a question. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go look at branch circuits and see what it says. And it might say something like the maximum rating or something like that have triggered that. So let's go look at branch circuits. You'll see that there's almost 2.5 columns of branch circuits. So I'm going to look at it and go down here and just kind of give it a quick skim down. See if there's anything in here that would help us. Okay. Now, you'll notice you see maximum loads, 220.18. Okay, so it's kind of asking us, this is maximum rating, okay, and the rating is whatever the overcurrent device is rated at. So again, it's talking about, okay, to have a maximum rating of cord and plug. So, okay, that looks like that is something that's going to be beneficial to me. So I'm going to mark that down. I'm going to finish it out, and you also see something, so that max loads is 220.18, and you also see something called permissible loads, 210.22. and 210.23. So on your paper, you're going to have written that. You're going to write .18, and you're going to do, .22 and .23, right? You're going to write it down. That way you're in here and you've got it, right? And then you're going to go through with it. Okay, so basically that's it. So what I'm going to do is in the code, I'm going to go over and I'm going to start my journey at .18. Now you might know the answer to this. You select it and you move on, but if you don't, then you need to dissect it. So we're going to go to the code book, and we'll go back into the code, and we'll just go back over here to 210. And like I said, it's not really letting me look at the different things here, so I have to do them manually. There we go. Okay, and let's see here. So I'm going to go to .18 first and read what that says. And remembering we're bold scanning along the way as when we get to about .18. Okay, branch circuit ratings. Here we go. Okay. All right, so we're looking at here in the question, just so we can kind of regather the question again real quick. It says, any one cord and plug connected portable appliance connected to a 120 volt, 20 ampere rated branch circuit shall have a maximum rating of blank amperes. Okay. All right, just so we got it. Maximum rating. All right, so in the 18, it says branch circuits recognized in the article shall have a rating in accordance with the maximum permitted ampere rating or setting of the overcurrent device. Okay, so the rating of the overcurrent, the rating other than individual shall be 15, 20, 30, 40, and 50, okay, that type of thing. So it looks like we're going to pick 20 because that's the rating of the branch circuit, and cord and plug connected can't exceed that, but we're not stopping there because we saw permissible loads. Okay, so this is talking about the maximum rating, but we're going to finish this out unless you're just ready to click it and move on. But we want to go look real quick, and we're just going to jump to .22. Okay, permissible loads. It says an individual branch circuit. Now, this didn't say anything about an individual branch circuit, by the way. But it said the individual branch circuit shall be permitted to supply any load for which it is rated, but in no case shall the load exceed the branch circuit ampere rating. Okay, sounds good to me so far. Okay, what do you see here? 15 and 20 amp circuit. This was a 20 amp circuit. Remember we said reason for writing these things down? Right here. Cord and plug connected equipment not fastened in place. All right, so this says any one cord and plug portable. Okay, so it's obviously not fastened in place. It says portable. It says the rating of any one cord and plug connected utilization equipment not fastened in place shall not exceed 80% of the branch circuit's rated amperes. Okay, so we were ready to click this 20. But reading that, I'm going to do 20 times 80%, and that is 16. So I'm going to choose 16. Oops, got to bring you back to me so you can see what we're doing here. Okay, so we originally clicked 20 because we're thinking, okay, it says that the branch circuit rating, and that's true, 20 amp, you can put 20 amps on it, but if you have a cord plug connected portable appliance and you're plugging it into a 20 amp, we just read what that said, and it basically said in 210.23A1 that for any one that you got to limit it to 80% of that. So that 20 times 80% is actually 16. So let's see if we're right. And there you go. 20 times 80%. Now, why was this trigger this one? Well, because it said cord and plug connected portable. So that tells me it's not fixed in place. That's not to confuse with any branch circuit typically in a house. If it's 15 amps, I can put 15 amps on it. If it's 20 amps, I can put 20 amps on it. But since this is a cord and plug connected portable appliance that's going to be plugged into that, then we have this threshold we have to follow, and it's not to exceed 80%. And that's what we got in 210.23A1. So you kind of got to go through that logic train, and we kind of did that. That's why we had the 18, the 22, and the 23, because we had to make sure that we're already there once. We went in the index. You might as well write them all down in that area that might be beneficial to you. And then you want to remember how important it is to bold scan. We want to use what's in the question to help us get where we need to get. Okay? Hopefully that's helped you out, made it a little easier for you. Look, exams are not easy. They're not designed to be easy. They're the gateway, right? They're the gateway to get you past from one level to the next. And we want to help you do that. If you find that you struggle with questions, you struggle with understanding and dissecting, and you need that little extra effort, then think about our Fast Tracks program. And I can tell you right now, there is no better program on the market. For the money, you get access to me on Wednesday nights. You get all these questions. You get the access to the Sparky Hub to post your questions. You got the Wednesday night where you can come and join us and ask your questions. I'm always there to help you anytime you might have any trouble in the program. And I can tell you, we put a lot into this program. Every competency review you do, and these aren't the competency reviews aren't these. They're not multiple choice. You have to actually fill them out. It's a struggle, but it's supposed to be that way. It's going to make you better. We cover calculations, the general information. We cover 1 and 2 family, multifamily, other than dwellings. We really get into the weeds, and it's tough, but people come out of that successful. So hopefully you'll check it out. Again, the address is right there, fasttracksystem.com. We have a demo. Watch our demo, and you can see what's in the program and see if it's beneficial to you. I'm always here to answer any questions. Just go to our website, fasttracksystem.com. More than happy to answer those questions for you. All right, folks, hopefully you got something out of a quick lesson today. Dissect the questions. Take the time. Don't let anybody tell you you have to rush through them. They're your questions. Take your time. There will always be time for you to speed test yourself, but that's usually the last 2 or 3 weeks before your exam, just to build that confidence in your speed. Till then, learn how to be able to look at a question and dissect it. Identify it. That's going to help you become a better test taker. And in the end, you'll retain it better and you'll become a better electrician. All right, folks, stay safe and God bless.